Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are all doing really well. So you probably noticed over the past little while I've been playing around with different upload days, and so I've basically been trying to keep my weekends a little bit more free and upload during the week, but honestly, like, I miss my Sunday uploads. So I think this is going to be the last kind of midweek upload that you'll see from me, and I'm going to be moving it back to Sundays. I just can't seem to adjust to doing this midweek kind of upload. But what I'm going to do is try to get my videos done and edited and everything earlier in the weekend, so then I have my Sundays free and then I can just post it Sunday morning. And I want to get back into doing my lives again. We started picking up doing kind of live shows, hangouts and stuff like that on the channel. I haven't for the past little while for certain reasons I'll get to in a minute, but yeah, so I think I'm gonna put my upload day back to Sundays. I played around with a couple of different ones, but I don't think it's really working for me. Yeah, so my regular upload day will be on Sundays, and then, you know, from time to time I'll probably miss one, but, and like I said, I want to start doing more lives. Probably like Saturday afternoons seem to work really well, so keep an eye out for more lives as well. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the kind of ghosty hangouts. Definitely want to do some more of those and talk about like upcoming projects and stuff that I'm working on. So that's it for kind of an update. Other than totally in my comfies today. It's Wednesday when I'm filming this. I don't know if this video will go up tonight or tomorrow, but yeah, just midweek, super tired, and I've been healing a new tattoo, or new tattoos I should say. I did have a session this past Friday, and it was a bit of a tough one because we got into the back of my knee. So I'll insert a picture here of my new piece. So we did a headless horseman holding a pumpkin, which is very much inspired by Sleepy Hollow, of course, and the continuation of my death themed leg. So I have another session I think on the 27th of March, and we're going to be hopefully finishing off the majority of my left leg. So let me know what you guys think of the new piece. I also got some more lines banged into my hand as well. So usually, like, for a good solid like 4 or 5 days after getting tattooed, like, I'm definitely tired and sore and all of those things. So that's enough of me rambling. We're gonna get into a reading wrap up. I haven't done a reading wrap up in quite some time. Did I do one at the beginning of January? Can't even remember if I did one at the beginning of January or not. It might have been around the holidays. So definitely want to wrap up everything that I've read over the past couple of months. And of course we're coming into old school April now, so kind of shifting gears a little bit. I've been reading a lot of gothic books and a lot of ghosty books over the past few months, with a few other things kind of interspersed here and there. And I've been really enjoying it. So we had the Gothic Hearts Reading Challenge, of course, and then we had Poe month, Edgar Allan Poe's birthday month, and International Gothic Reading month in January. So lots and lots of Gothic reads to discuss, and like I said, a few other kind of YA sort of things wrapped in there as well. So hopefully you guys enjoy the video. I'm gonna stop rambling and we're gonna get into it. So the first ones, I'm just gonna go through the ones that I have in physical copy, just because they're right here in front of me. So most of my books lately I have been reading on audio and ebook, but I did get through some physical copies as well. So the first one is Dream Date by Sinclair Smith. So one of my resolutions, if you want to call it that, or one of my goals for the new year, was to pick up more of my vintage collection, and I was super happy to pick up A Point Horror. I think this was in January, and I read it as part of the Shady Side book club that Zach runs, and really enjoyed this one. So this is about this young girl who meets like basically the perfect guy, but he's in her dreams, and he starts becoming more and more real as the book goes on. He starts kind of terrorizing her a little bit, and she gets like really scared, and he's becoming more and more real. And she finds out, like, you know, obviously he started out well and good and everything, and as time goes on he gets more and more possessive and really mean and all of that kind of stuff, and she doesn't really know how to get rid of him because she's terrified to go to sleep. And as someone who has suffered from all kinds of sleep issues in my life, including the fear of going to sleep because of my nightmares, waking nightmares, night terrors, nocturnal hallucinations, whatever you want to call them, this book was actually quite scary to me because of kind of my own personal experiences of going to sleep and, you know, experiencing really, really, really bad stuff, and then you wake up and you can't go back to sleep. So there was a period of time in my life when the sun started to go down that my anxiety would start to get really, really bad because I didn't want to go to sleep, but I was too scared to also stay awake because I would get delirious with, you know, the lack of sleep and everything. So anyway, this one ended up being super, super scary to me. So I think I gave this one a 3.5, possibly 4 stars. It was around there. I thought it was really good. It was full of cheese. You know, it's that wonderful point horror 90s sort of nostalgia that I was looking for at the time. Really, really super happy that I read this one. I'm kind of stuffed up too. We get, we're in a Chinook right now, and it's like 18 degrees here in March, which is crazy. And we had like snowstorms last week, and then we had like a 20 or 30 degree weather swing. So my sinuses are all stuffed up and I have a headache. It's horrible. Actually, one of my girlfriends at work had to go home yesterday because she had a migraine and everything. It's just, so if I sound a little bit nasally, that's why. Next up, I wanted to talk about this one. So finally picked this one up. I've been talking about this one several times on the channel, and finally picked it up as part of the Gothic Hearts. Was it the Gothic Hearts? No, I think it was actually part of my January reads for the International Gothic Reading Month. So this is Shadow House. This is the first in the Shadow House series by Dan Poblocki. So this is The Gathering, and I always talk about how this is a beautiful cover. So we have like this spooky face in like a mirror, and you open it up and you can still see the spooky face here, and there's a girl here with like this hand reaching out for her and stuff. So this is genuinely a creepy book. Like, this is a middle grade book. Like I said, it's the first in a series. I probably will eventually pick up the other ones because I did enjoy this one. But so it's about these kids that they all end up going to this really super creepy house, and they're kind of lured there, I guess, by this mysterious person. But the person acted as someone else to each one of the kids. So some of the kids were like actors, so they made themselves seem like they were an agent. Another kid is like a prodigy with, I believe it's violin, so he thought he was going to be going to like a music school and all of this kind of stuff. So all these kids end up at this abandoned house, and they don't know, they can't figure out why. Like, you know, they reached out to one person as saying it was a music school, they reached out to another person saying it was like a talent agency and stuff like that. And of course, you know, you kind of gotta overlook the fact that their parents just kind of blindly dropped them off at this gigantic house. But anyway, the place is completely abandoned, or so it seems. But as they go more and more in the house, they start having these really creepy experiences, really ghostly experiences. And they start meeting these kids in the house, but all the kids have masks. And so this one is really, there's like spooky photos throughout the book. So like all of these creepy kids have like these animal masks. And I won't get too much into it, but the story behind the kids and the house and all of that kind of stuff that they're starting to unravel and they're starting to discover is really creepy, but it's also really, really sad. And you know, for the first part of the book, I was kind of like, you know, like, let's pick it up a little bit, but because it is part of a series, obviously it was setting the stage, it was setting up the story. But by about halfway through, I was like, yeah, this is really, really good. So I believe I gave this one 4 stars. And like I said, I will definitely read the other ones in this series as well. And the next physical one, finally, that I got to is Gothic Life by Aurelia Voltaire, The Essential Guide to Macabre Style. And this is a beautiful book just in the way that it's presented. Like, it's all kind of debossed on the cover. I love the purple and the skulls, and it has purple end pages. And so for the most part, like, this would be geared towards more so baby bats that want to get into shifting kind of their everyday life into like Gothic style or Halloween type style. So I mean, I did enjoy those chapters on like decorating and, you know, finding Halloween stuff and all of that kind of thing. But you know, I very much, number one, already have my house like that. Like this dude here, like I could see him right there, like I already have him. So that kind of stuff, like number one, I've already been through that phase, I guess you would call it. And now that I'm kind of getting older and I'm kind of like, what would you consider me? Like, actually one guy a couple of years ago called me an elder in the community, which I guess I am. But I've been through the whole in-your-face Halloween and the everyday Halloween style, and I'm more gearing my own decorating style more towards Victorian vintage, or Victorian antique, I guess you would say, and less of the like the trad goth and all of that kind of stuff. Like I still have lots of skulls and everything, but it's kind of evolved a little bit. But I did still enjoy those chapters. But the two things that I really enjoyed with this book is he talks a lot about the pioneers of the Gothic subculture, and the people that kind of really revolutionized it and really brought everything to life, like throughout the 60s and 70s into the 80s, of course. So we're talking about like Cab Calloway. He talks about Screamin' Jay Hawkins, Peter Murphy, Susie Sue, like all of those people that kind of, so it goes into a lot of Gothic history, and then it kind of gets into the decorating style a little bit, you know, and the full color photos are absolutely gorgeous. I love his Gothic homemaking show on YouTube. I would love to do a lot of the DIYs, but like I said, a lot of his stuff is kind of veered a little bit from the route that I'm starting to go in my life now. But of course, there's always something to take away, right? And of course, even just looking at the beautiful photos has been fantastic. But what I really did enjoy and what I'm looking forward to is the drinks and food that he has in here. I would love to make some of the drinks obviously without alcohol, and there are some non-alcoholic drinks in here, but there's all kinds of Halloween themed drinks and food and everything. And there's other DIY projects in here that you can do as well. Some of them are kind of towards what he did on Gothic homemaking, and some of them are completely separate from that. But overall, this was just a complete joy to read. I loved it from cover to cover. I would highly recommend this. And I mean, I'm just, you know, typically I don't keep newer books because I want my library to be mainly my vintage collection. But this is just a beautiful keepsake. And like I said, all of the photos and everything throughout are just fantastic. And I want to continue to go back to this to make some of the recipes and do some of the DIYs. So, I mean, all in all, you know, it was a great read, and I highly, highly recommend this one. Okay, getting into some ghosty books. So I believe on my last reading wrap up that I did, I talked about Hidden Haunts England. So, and I believe I was reading that one. It is a 5-star read for me, but since then I have also read Hidden Haunts Ireland, which I just finished a little while ago, and also full 5 stars. So these books were written by W.J. Gilbert, who runs Eerie Edinburgh here on YouTube. I've talked about him constantly on the channel. I love his channel. I love his books. He's fantastic. But out of the 3 books, so I've read the Hidden Haunts, so there's 3 in the series now. There's Scotland, England, and now Ireland that just got released about a month or so ago, I believe. And out of all 3, Ireland is definitely my favorite. I don't know why, but I really, really enjoyed it cover to cover. I didn't try to rush through it at all. The stories were fantastic, and and he does this with his channel as well as his books. There's always a lot of history wound into a place, so that you kind of understand the backstory behind the hauntings. Is not just the ghost stories. And I love the way that he does that, because I do love history in general, but also the history of that area of the world. But this one I think really touched my heart for a few reasons. Number one is because of Irish mythology specifically. It talks a lot about Irish banshees, and he specifically has one it's towards the beginning of the book. He has one entry where he specifically talks about the Banshee in Darby O'Gill and the Little People, which is a Disney movie from, I believe, the 50s. It was such a favorite of mine when I was growing up, and it's a really obscure movie. Like, most people that you talk to have never seen this movie. I've seen this movie 100 times. If you can get the original, the DVD, it would be better, but it is on Disney Plus as well. The only problem with the Disney Plus version is they've dubbed Darby to talk slower than what he does, of course, because he speaks with an accent. He does talk very quickly in the film. And the other thing is, anytime they're speaking Gaelic, they've dubbed it in English. And so it would have been great if they put English subtitles along the bottom instead of taking the Gaelic out. But anyway, this is a rant about my personal preference of this film. But when he was talking about Darby O'Gill and the Little People and how the Banshee that was depicted in that movie really scared him as a child, I just had an instant connection, because the Banshee in that movie scared the crap out of me as a child. And so we had that instant connection, and it was almost emotional when I was reading it. There's a lot of stories about the Banshee in it. There's a lot of stories about other kind of folkloric figures and like obviously landmarks and stuff like that I've heard about before. And there is actually one story that contains a section that has to do with Newfoundland, which is fantastic. So I think just the surprises of reading those passages in that book like really connected with me, but also it's the love of Irish folklore and talking about like the death coach and all of that kind of stuff and banshees and everything. Ireland was definitely my favorite out of the three, but the more he releases, the more I'm going to read, and I know I'm going to enjoy them. So I would highly recommend this entire series, Scotland, England, and Ireland, but Ireland was definitely my favorite out of the three. Okay, The Third Wife of Faraday House by B.R. Myers. So I have to say that a lot of the Gothic books and a lot of the books in general that I read over January, February, and into the beginning of March are some of the best books that I've read, but also I'm sure are going to make it on my list of best books of 2026. You know, I couldn't believe that I read so many 4- and 5-star books. I enjoyed so many. There were very, very few that I didn't enjoy. And this one specifically really, really caught my attention. I loved this book. So this is about a young woman, actually from Nova Scotia here in Canada, and she marries obviously like this rich nobleman and stuff like this and everything. He's a widower, and supposedly his wife has died. And so anyway, she gets engaged to him and everything, and he brings her to his estate in England. And she realizes that his current wife, who's actually his second wife, is still alive. And, you know, so there's this whole storyline of like what the heck is going on. And, but her and the wife kind of develop this relationship, and it's a fantastic book. It's ghosty, it's atmospheric. I don't want to get into it too much because I don't want to give away anything that's going on with this kind of situation. And she is pining for a guy at home, of course. And so it has a lot, like obviously there's a lot of romance and everything, but just the atmosphere, the writing style, the ghosty elements, and just what's going on in this house and what he's doing with his second wife who's still alive. And that's right in the synopsis. So it's not a spoiler. And I gobbled this book up. I enjoyed it so much. I listened to this thing when I was driving, folding laundry, cooking dinner, vacuuming, whatever. Like, I continued to listen to this book, and it was one of the best Gothic reads that I've had in a long time, and definitely a full 5 stars. So I will for sure read more by B.R. Myers. I think this was my first from this author, and this is definitely one I would highly, highly suggest. So full 5 stars. I have no doubt is probably going to be on my best books of 2026, even though I only just read it, you know, in the very first month. But, you know, I can't gush enough about this one. So definitely, if you're looking for that Gothic atmospheric sort of book, this one is definitely one to pick up. on the other hand, we have The Wicked Cometh, which I was reading at the same time as Faraday House. And so The Wicked Cometh is by Laura Carlin, and it's about this young woman who's really, really poor, and she's kind of an orphan. She's pretty destitute and stuff like that, and you know, she's got to work really hard for a living and that sort of thing. And she has a run-in with a really prestigious family. And so this woman, Hester White, who is kind of more on the poor side, and then this family, the Brock family, she has you know, just by happenings that they cross paths, and she gets in with this family, and they basically take her on to live with them. And so I won't get into any reason why or whatever, but she strikes up a relationship with the sister of the master of the house, Rebecca Brock, who is, you know, I guess you would call her like a spinster or whatever. She's unmarried and everything. And at the same time, there's a lot of the kind of lower class people are going missing, turning up dead, and all of this sort of thing. So it has very much like a true crime sort of angle, and these women are trying to figure out what's going on, but the whole thing is overshadowed by their relationship. So this is a sapphic romance, and which I have absolutely no problem with romance in my Gothic books. Obviously, most Gothic books, like, you know, have romantic elements. But what I don't like is when I'm looking for kind of that true crime sort of element, this mystery and stuff like that. And I did really like the mystery in this book, but it was overshadowed by too much pining and whining, is what I call it. So it was just like, and it would be like paragraphs and paragraphs and chapter after chapter of them pining for each other, and you know, writing the letters and crying, and you know, it's very melodramatic in, you know, the Gothic way. And like I say, I have no problem with those elements in my Gothic reads. It's just when it overtakes the main storyline that I'm trying to get into. So unfortunately, and because Faraday House was so good, I think it also made this one fall flat a little bit more, because I really wasn't enjoying it. I would go days and days and days without picking it up because I didn't like, I didn't want to go back to these women whining over each other. And but I did make it through. It was okay. Like, I would give it like on the 2.5 to 3 star kind of rating, I guess. Not my favorite book, not my least favorite book by any means, but it didn't go in the direction that I wanted it to, and it was too much of the melodramatic Gothic romance, more so than the true crime mystery element that I was reading it for. And next up on the list, we have a classic, of course, is The Silent Companions by Laura Purcell. And I've been years and years and years and years saying that I'm going to pick up this book, and I've read all of Laura Purcell's, or most of Laura Purcell's other books, and really, really enjoyed them. But this one is her most well-known. It's the one that I hadn't read yet, and this was fantastic. I loved this book. It was super creepy. So of course, this is about a woman who goes to this estate, and there's these carved wooden figures called the Silent Companions, and things start to get very, very creepy in the house. It's very much like an unsettling kind of Gothic ghost story, I guess you would say. But it has to do with a lot of women's mental health, and like is she going crazy, or is there actually a haunting, and all of those kinds of elements wound into this story. And so this one, you know, did I give it 5 stars? I think I gave it like, if not 5, then it was definitely 4.5. So this one, like I said, classic Gothic sort of ghostly atmospheric sort of story with some mental health aspects wound into it also. But the ending of this book just was the cherry on top. I remember I was sitting at my desk, and I believe I was destickering or something, and I actually had to run upstairs and tell Matthew about the ending of the book, because it was just, it brought everything right around. I loved it. And the I don't know if you want to call it sequel, but the companion book to this one is actually out now. I do have it downloaded on my e-reader, and I want to get to that one. So this is, I believe her ancestors go back to the ancestral home. And then of course, you know, the silent companions are still there. So yeah, fantastic. Now I see what the hype is all about, and it's definitely that Laura Purcell level of Gothic writing and atmosphere and everything. If nothing else, just her writing style is worth reading this one. So really glad I finally got to it, and it was the perfect time with International Gothic Reading Month and the Gothic Hearts Reading Challenge to fit this one in there. And I also, so getting back to like middle grade books, I also read Ravenfall, book 1 in the Ravenfall series by Kaylin Josephson. And I think this one has to be either an underappreciated or not widely talked about book, because I haven't seen anybody else talk about this series. I can't even remember why or how I ended up with it downloaded on my e-reader. And it had been there for ages, and I finally picked it up. And this was such a joy to read. I laughed, I was lighthearted, I smiled. It was so cute, and I will definitely read the rest of the series as well. But I was just so surprised that I enjoyed it so much when it's a book that hasn't been like widely talked about. I don't think I've heard of anybody else talk about this series. So this is about this young girl. I believe she's 13, and she comes from a family of psychics, so they all have special abilities. And the entire family runs Ravenfall Manor, which is a bed and breakfast, and it's on kind of the boundary between humans and otherworldly creatures. And the house is a character itself in the story. And I think I love any kind of story where a house is like its own sort of character, and that just made me smile. So you have this young girl, her entire family is just totally wacky, and they're all psychics and have special abilities and all this kind of stuff. And then this boy comes to Ravenfall Manor because he's looking for his lost brother. Apparently his brother has gone missing, and their parents had been killed by this mythical creature or mythical creatures. And so because he's come there, and they're kind of on that precipice between the human world and the other world, you know, they strike up this friendship and everything. And so they're trying to figure out where the lost brother is, who killed his parents, and then all along the way there's like this Celtic mythical creature that they're dealing with, and it's a matter of life and death and the whole thing. This is very much like a Buffy and the Scoobies kind of thing. Like, it's its own thing. It has nothing to do with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but just the whole, like, you know, development of magical abilities and fighting and all of that kind of stuff, the good versus evil. And then it has the folklore, the Celtic folklore wrapped into it as well. So I love that. You guys know that I love having any kind of folklore wrapped into, especially my middle grade reads, because they're so imaginative. The Spooks Apprentice books are some of my favorite books of all time, and they have the same sort of elements. So this was such a joy for me to read, and like I said, that kind of parallel between, like, you know, Buffy and the Scoobies and the big bad and the whole thing, and it just blew me away. It really did. I think out of all the books that I read, this one was the most surprising, and I enjoyed it cover to cover, and I will definitely pick up more, like I said, and highly recommend that you do too if you're looking for that middle grade kind of wacky fantasy sort of good versus evil sort of read. And next up, I did read a little bit of Edgar Allan Poe. So this was part of the Nevermore Readathon, which is hosted by Kat at Kat's Novel Adventures. And Jen's book club, Literary Love 123, also had a Poe pick for January, of course, with it being his posthumous birthday. So I did reread The Mask of the Red Death and Ligeia as part of that. Unfortunately, I did miss the live show. I ended up really sick in January, so I missed a whole bunch of things actually. But it was so great to pick up some Poe during Poe month. Unfortunately, I didn't get to rewatch The Mask of the Red Death with Vincent Price in it. I would have liked to do that. Probably will throw it on eventually, but you know, it was great either way to pick up some Poe, and he's definitely a favorite, and definitely a favorite, you know, to reminisce about my childhood, because it's something that I read when I was a teenager, like most of us, and I haven't picked any up for a while. Next up, we have The Last Witch by C.J. Cook. So we all know that C.J. Cook has turned out to be one of my favorite authors. She's an auto-buy author for me now. I'm going to continue to read the rest of the books that she has published. The Lighthouse Witches was on my favorites of 2025 list last year. And this one, I believe, came out towards the end of 2025. And this book did so much to me. So a full 5 stars. I loved it. I loved the writing. I loved the story. I loved the atmosphere. And I love the witchy elements, the witchy story at the center. Unfortunately, because of the subject matter of the book, it was really hard for me to read. Like, even Matt said, he's like, you don't do torture, so it must be like a really hard read. And I'm like, it is. There's a couple of spots in the book I kind of had to take myself out of the situation to kind of glide over the top. And even in the very first chapter, I wanted to turn it off. I wanted to have nothing to do with it, but I did keep listening to it, and of course I ended up really enjoying this. So this takes place during the witch hysteria in Germany. So not as part of the UK, not as part of Salem. It's in Germany in, I believe, the 15th century, 1485, I believe is when this takes place. And Heinrich Kramer actually is a character in the story, and it's about this woman who gets accused of being a witch after, so she has an affair with her husband's footman. He ends up turning up dead, and she ends up being accused as a witch. So I'm not going to say how all of that relates together, but anyway, she ends up being accused as a witch, and she's thrown in prison with a bunch of other women who have also been accused of being witches. And they find this witch's talisman, and they want to use it to conjure another witch. So I won't get too much into the story, but it is very witchy. It has a lot to do with witchcraft itself, but it also has to do with the witch hysteria during that time period, and how it came about, and what happened to women. And I will say that it is very graphic in some places. It's a very hard read. I found it very visceral. It's something that I won't forget very soon, but I am really glad that I picked it up. And CJ Cook did reach out and say that she appreciated my review of it, so that's fantastic. I'm going to continue to read her books. Her books are very feminist, most of them, if not all of them, and if you're not following her on Instagram, she does post fairly frequently over there, and fantastic posts as well. So if you haven't read The Last Witch and you're looking for that witchy sort of historical fiction with a really great story that's, you know, got a lot of meat on the bones, this one I will definitely recommend, and I have no doubt this is going to be another one that's on my top books of 2026 list. So I've made some pretty bold predictions of what's going to be on my top list, but you know, some of these were just so good. There's no way that they're not going to be there. So the next one was super disappointing, actually. I only rated it 2 stars. I mean, that's the highest I would give it. So this is The Conjurer's Wife by Sarah Penner. I've read two of Sarah Penner's books. This is more of a short story. It's only, you know, not even novella length really. And it's about this woman who, along with her husband, they have like a magic show. And, you know, it does have some gothic feels and stuff like that to it. Sarah Penner is very much a gothic writer. And I don't want to get into too much because it is a short story, but it just really had no purpose to me. It had no purpose. It had no meaning. It was almost like she had a very vague idea of something to write about and just wrote a short story. So I was a little bit disappointed because I did enjoy Sarah Penner's other books that I read, The London Seance Society and The Lost Apothecary. And, you know, so this one really fell flat for me. I was glad it was only a short story because I only had to spend very little time with it. So unfortunately, I can't recommend this particular book, but Sarah Penner's full-length novels are definitely like 3 to 3.5 stars for me. So I would recommend picking up those other ones. Next up, we have actually a YA slasher, which was a nice little palate cleanser from all of the Gothic that I've been reading. So this is The Last One to Die by Cynthia Murphy. And so this has to do with this young girl, Neve, who goes to like a drama school as like a summer away from home. Like she's Irish, but she's in the States, and she's in this drama school. And so this is a murder mystery slasher basically, and other girls that look like her are starting to die, and it's very fast paced. It's got a great storyline. I did enjoy you know, kind of delving into that YA sort of sphere for a quick second to have that palate cleanser between all of the Gothic, especially after reading The Last Witch, which was very, very heavy. So I did appreciate this one. Like I said, I'm not going to get into too much of it because it is a quick read, but it, you know, it was about a 3.5 stars. You know, I didn't dislike it. It wasn't the best read of the year, but it was super fun, and I will definitely read more by Cynthia Murphy. And then last but not least, so another one that's probably going to make it on my top reads of 2026 list is The Black Feathers by Rebecca Netley. So Rebecca Netley's book, The Whistling, made it on my top reads of 2025, and I was really super excited to pick up The Black Feathers. And it's a book that I've skipped over a few times now, but I finally picked it up as part of the Gothic Hearts Reading Challenge. I did finish it just yesterday, actually. Did I pick it up as part of Gothic Hearts? No, I think I picked it up in March, actually. So it was after Gothic Hearts. But this book, full 5 stars. It blew me away. I really, really, really enjoyed this book. And it's about this woman who marries a man for basically status, and you know, it's an arranged marriage and all of this kind of stuff. And his sister, who lives in the house with them, is really super eccentric. So she's a medium, and they have like seances and use this spirit glasses stuff, but she also works on taxidermy, and the taxidermy is like super really creepy. So it has this whole atmosphere of like creepy elements to the house with all the taxidermy and her doing seances, and it turns out she actually does have like psychic ability and everything. She's not just one of these frauds. And you know, it gets super, super creepy. And this woman, basically anywhere where there's magic or anywhere where there's ghosts, black feathers are left. And I loved the ghosty element to this story, but even more so than that, the way that the atmosphere is written, the way that the house is written, it's just fantastic writing, a fantastic story, and there's just this air of just unsettling feeling throughout the whole thing. And then as the story goes on, it just develops more and more and more and more. And then, you know, the new wife is finding out that the old wife, he was a widower, so his first wife had passed away, and she kind of gets wrapped into figuring out what happened with his first wife. And the story just develops more and more and more and more. And you know, that has to be done in a certain way, because a lot of times if there's too many plot lines, then you kind of get lost, or things end up falling apart, and some aspects of the story are not very well developed. But this just came around, it got tied up in a pretty little bow, and I finished reading it last night at the gym. So this is another one where I read this book doing everything. I read it on the way to and from work, folding laundry, cooking, even at the gym. I had my headphones in listening to this book, and I was actually starting to tear up on the treadmill at the end of this story, because it was so beautiful. It was so well written. And then, you know, just the ending had its own feelings and revelations as well. I think the lady next to me was getting a little bit concerned because I was getting emotional on my treadmill. But fantastic read. Rebecca Netley has blown me out of the water with both of her books, and so she's going to be another auto-buy author for me for sure, and I can't wait to pick up more by her. She's a fantastic writer. She's so good at writing atmosphere, and her stories are just instantly compelling. They just suck you in. So between the CJ Cook and Rebecca Netley books that I've read at the end of 2025 into 2026 have put them right on the top of my author list for sure. So that's it. There you guys go. That's everything that I read, you know, kind of since the beginning of January, I guess. You know, I've really slowed down my reading. I'm trying to read more quality and not quantity, and really just enjoy my reads, and it's been fantastic. So what I'm reading right now, I'm going to be starting a new audiobook, obviously, but my ebook that I'm reading right now is The Exorcist House Genesis, which has been another fantastic palate cleanse, a little bit of religious horror, a little bit of demonic horror in there. The first Exorcist House book by Nick Roberts I really enjoyed, so I have high hopes for this one. I'm only a few chapters in, but it's going well so far, and just my reading in general this year has been fantastic. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, give me a thumbs up and leave me a question or comment down below, because you know I love chatting with you guys. But until next time, stay spooky everybody. Bye.